Mili, Principal Consultant and Head Technology, Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India. Mr. Vijay Devnath, Chief Information Security Officer, Center for Railway Information Systems, CRIS. Please join us. And then Mr. Alok Tripathi, Joint Director, National Institute of Electronics and Information Technology, NIELIT. Now I hand over the session to Sir, and so that we can start with the awards at around 7.
Good evening, everybody, and I welcome all in this session, last session, which is a little bit late, but we'll try to conclude within the time frame. We have been given some around 30 minutes to conclude the session. We'll try to finish the session within the time frame. Before we go for presentation, let me introduce the session. As we have gone through a very good interaction during the day, we have discussed that the security has to go end by end. That means it has to be from receiving to the initiating point that the security has to be made. And then we can say that the security is not only for flowing data but also the equipments. And we are all running a war against threat to security of the data as well as the equipments. And as one of the speakers quoted that everybody is policeman without uniform. That means each and every personnel who is involved in this data security has to be active and has to be taken care. That means there is a need of a person who has to be trained. We have to go for capacity building from very beginning to the last person who is in security. Just like when we talk about we are having very good ICU, and we are not talking that sterilization of the only ICU room, but it has to be the equipments, all equipments which are there in the ICU. Each and every person, whether it is doctor or nurses or even relative and friends, everybody has to be sterilized, otherwise there is a chance of infection. So this gives you need that this knowledge of war against threat to security, each and every person has to be trained, and that is where we need to go for capacity building, and that is where the function of the NIELIT comes into it. NIELIT has so many programs, starting from very basic computing and from information technology to the graduate level programs and to the masters, and then we are also going for research or innovation projects. Similarly, when we talk about these security threats, then we also used to, just now we have discussed that in security we have to be proactive rather than active. So when we talk about the proactive, that means before anybody, any bad guys or any hackers go for threat to the security, we have to create a counter mechanism. That means we have to do some innovation in such a way that before system collapses, our innovative idea or innovative technology has to take care of. So that means we have to go for innovation in this particular area, so that before we go for any catastrophic change, we should the knowledge should be taken care of the things. With this one, now we have 4 speakers in this session, and we have around 20 to 30 minutes in this session. So I will request the speaker to restrain within the 5 to 6 minutes of their presentation, and then we'll open panel for discussion around 5 to 10 minutes. And now the first speaker I invite Colonel Navjoot Singh, Senior Research Fellow, Center for Joint Web Warfare Studies. So I request him to present his topics, and I will again request that kindly try to maintain the time limits. Thank you.
Good evening, Chair, members on the dais, and distinguished participants. Because of this strict stricture from the Chair and the organizers, I have decided to dispense with the presentation and just bring out the major crunch issues. I'll give a talk on the relevance of ICT for the armed forces. And as per this Hedy Toffler's concept of 3 revolutions or 3 waves of warfare, the information would be the crucial resource of the current 3rd wave. This would be a new type of warfare that would seek to exploit the ongoing developments in knowledge. And these are the hazards of technology. We are running late, so actually I was expected at some place else, so the reminder call coming from there. Okay. So much has already been deliberated upon the knowledge-based warfare and the age of warfare. But as such in the previous sessions, so I will not deliberate further on this. This is one of the benefits of speaking in the last session. Much of what you want to say has already been covered. Suffice to say that China is making great strides and has organized many dedicated task force of hundreds of experts, armed forces specialists and technologists towards this objective. We back home in the Indian Armed Forces, as a quick inventory scan, there has been a surge in the proliferation of ICT. ICT is being employed all over the country and the armed forces are in concert with it. And there's been a proliferation of ICT assets in various wings of the armed forces and in all farms. All types of assets, categories, namely hardware, networking, software applications, security perspectives, they've all taken a boost. There's been a mixed variation in the proliferation which has come in. The expansion has not only been in the range but in the depth and the applicability. And the equipment profile is to a large extent commercially off the shelf, and some of it is proprietary in nature, which comes along with its associated spin-offs, advantages and disadvantages. The convergence between the IT and the communication fields is inevitable, as is happening in the rest of the country, and the armed forces also seized the same fact. A bit on the information security scenario. Now, security, as we understand, is a very subjective term, and we can define it as an acceptable balance of threats against safeguards for a particular circumstance. In the context of the security of information infrastructure, it signifies acceptable balance of risks and threats against assurance that we need to provide to the systems. Conscious decision has been taken to limit the use of internet in the armed forces because primarily there has been a lack of legal enforcement on vendors involved in the IT security projects, and there is a lack of assured framework. The procurement procedures and the lowest bidder concept do not actually lend itself to the security issues, and as also the total cost of ownership. You are all aware, all those dealing in the government departments, the moment you go in for the L1 bidder, there are also issues of what we call supply chain infection, whereby a person with a malicious intent, he may deliberately underbid to get inside so that he is able to provide at an apparent financial loss, but later on make substantial gains. ICT offers the powerful tool for greater economy and benefit to all. This has not been lost in the government, and at the government level, an initiative has been taken at this to ensure the infusion of ICT in the armed forces. At the highest level, there is a Defence IT Consultative Committee headed by the Honorable RRM and chaired by the CISC headquarters IDS, which has representation from the members of academia, the top IT companies. It meets twice a year, and all major ICT related issues pertaining to the armed forces are deliberated at that forum. In the recent past, there has been a Defence Expenditure Review Committee that had been formulated to expedite the various procedures and dwelt at length on what needs to be done to usher in ICT within the armed forces. The salient aspects which the armed forces need to keep in mind and which they are adhering to while infusing ICT in the various processes are: we need high-speed gathering and processing of information because of reducing the need for sensor to shooter loop. High-speed storage and retrieval of information. This is a plethora of database as the speaker in the previous session had brought out. They're carrying out a database regarding for human, the database mapping. Same is required for various situations that emerge. We need rapid dissemination of apt and concise information. We don't need information overload. Apt and concise information. Automated decision making and support is a plus. And there is a need to enable joint warfare capabilities on information warfare, which Dr. Gulshan Rai had dwelt on at length during his talk. To conclude, the proposed vision for the Tri-Services ICT integration, which had been recommended by the Defence Expenditure Review Committee, was to provide planning and conduct of operations at the strategic level, at the macro level. Shared awareness and collaborative planning at the operational level, with interworking of logistics and management information systems at the tactical levels. These, if achieved, will improve the overall efficiency within the armed forces. Now, the salient aspects in which we can break down this vision are high-speed gathering and processing of information. Now, these are takeaways for the industry that this is what the armed forces would be looking forward to. Instantaneous storage and retrieval, rapid dissemination, uniform standards and protocol within the armed forces, awareness of the legacy IT assets. We cannot just dump the assets which are already in place. We have to be aware of them and we have to link them up. Of the three services and backward compatibility, net centricity and integration, and common human resource, HR and IT training issues. And of course, we would love to embrace the new technologies and achieve uniform scalability. I have about 30 seconds left, as it was said in that movie Guru. So I will leave because I do not want to, anytime this is a long weekend starting on to Holi. So I do not want to be the one standing between a long weekend and Holi and be on the wrong side of the chair. Thank you everybody. Thank you for giving me a patient here.
Navjot Singh. Now I will request Mr. Golak Kumar Simli, who is Principal Consultant and Head Technology Ministry of External Affairs, Government of India.
Good evening to my distinguished panelists and ladies and gentlemen. Again, for the paucity of time, let us not focus onto the presentation. Now, 2-3 things probably I'd like to bring into this forum. When we talk about security as per se in entire governance department, including e-governance as a whole. In fact, today we are discussing on NEGP Vision 2, where there was a gathering of mission leaders chaired by Secretary IT, and I had a privilege to attend that meeting. So there also, the first thing came in was, you open up first. When you talk in any government department, first you please open up and then you think of all other periphery, including security and other things. So the first point I want to make it here is, security is purely, if you take one side of it, it's purely a mind. But then the other side of it, it's actually a real. For an example, let's say, we all speaker, when we want to speak something, you need to refer to the slides. You need a PowerPoint slides. Similarly the case, but how do you build a PowerPoint slides unless you have some information around it? So similar is the case here. If you simply think of security, don't do anything, nothing will move. So please start working on something which is, you are thinking as a part of service delivery, as a part of improving governance, whatever you say, and that is what probably we did in the Passport Seva. Passport Seva we did started with security as a such. Though it is a national security document, it's a critical document, passport is a national sensitivity involved in it. But then the day one, if we started thinking about how do I protect my issuance of passport as a secure document, could not have been achieved here. So those things will anyway come in. Now the other part I want to focus here is, since we are discussing on the capacity building, now various of these governments department, again, whatever you think of legacy, or you are thinking of a new applications or new improvements or new business or new service delivery. whatever you think, you will go through a various model of approach, be it a revenue model, be it a solution architecture, be it a security deployment, there will be mix and matches. Now it's purely up to the department, how do you analyze and classify your data. That is the most important part. Unless you are yourself able to classify your data and information, and the stakeholder or the user or the service seeker to whom you want to deliver, believe me, again security is purely a mine. You will not be able to take it anywhere. Neither you will be able to start. So this is the another point I thought I'll make while you think of a building a capacity for the security which you will be actually implementing or designing or in a future you will be operationalizing it. The third thing, since many of these e-governance programs which will foresee in future saying that the business model will actually be, you will see there will be 80% private participation. Because without that, there is no way you will be, implementing or initializing or involving in capex or opex investment. So there has to be a private participation. Now, if there is a private participation, if you have a government data which is sensitive in nature, then you need a capacity within. Now, that capacity again, as we are discussing in maximum fora, saying that we need to have, now this is the high time, department must have a kind of their own cadre. Unless you do that, unless you create that, and then finally probably you will be moving towards how do you actually strategically control your own sovereign resources. I think these are the 3 points I would like to leave here, and paucity of time I will not go to the presentation. Thank you.
Mr. Golab Kumar Sangli, and he has talked about the use of ICT in passport, which is very sensitive documents, and also about the capacity building within the system so that the security of the information can be taken care of. Now I will request Mr. Vijay Devnath, who is Chief Engineer, Chief Information Security Officer, Center for Railway Information System, CRIS.
Good evening to everybody. And as we are, our previous speakers have said, we are standing between. Sorry. So, not taking up much time. I will come straight to the point what the topic talks about. You might be thinking that I would have had a long presentation what Railways does for information security, but it's not so. I don't have a presentation and I don't intend to make a presentation on that. Railway has all the standard security mechanisms which are required in a large IT system, and the only few things I want to say about that security in railway information system is that our focus is more on availability of the service. We are more harassed by doubts and fraudsters than any kind of hacking, because we don't hold any sensitive data. The data which we hold is already in public domain, and we need to make it more available in the public domain. So we don't need to do things like data leakage prevention and all those things. We do standard kind of security, and more of our security and vigilance infrastructure is devoted towards negating the doubts and fraudsters who are out to make money out of public pocket. It doesn't. The railway doesn't lose any money in that. Only public loses. So that's one. And the second problem which we face in railways, which we are not able to tackle, is that most of our people who are involved in IT and IT security are themselves experts, and they are not amenable to discipline, being government employees. So, any kind of processes or dictates do not work. So we have to keep on running after them and keep on asking them for restraint. But you know what happens. And wherever we have very, very sensitive data, where one user can misuse other users' data, something like the e-procurement system. There we have introduced digital signatures because there is a chance that the bids can be manipulated by others. So there digital signatures are there. I will not go into detail how it is done and what is done. You know all that. Now coming to the capacity building part, we do not have a IT cadre, and IT security is last in the minds of railway managers. So what we try to do is, which can be also taken up in the national level, is we provide whoever is interested in the IT work or in IT security work, we provide hands-on experience to them. We recruit them or we recruit them into those groups and ask them to get hands-on training. We also try to collaborate with colleges, giving their students those third year or fourth year training in our institution, and particularly in the IT and security area. What we find is that the response is very poor. The students are sent to our organization to get some 2-month certificate. So they come here, from the day one they start asking for a project, easy project, which needs to be done, and a project report can be made in 2 months. So we discourage that, so we refuse to get that. We encourage that only people who come with at least 6 months of project work, we only take them, which are very few. Another initiative which we have started and which others can also follow is that you can go to your schools. The schools where your children are studying, or schools in your area, where you will find that the students who are studying in class 9 and above, they are already into IT more than any of us here, and they need not be told what to do with IT. Only thing which we need to tell them is what they need to do with the security part of it. So if many of us who are quite well versed with IT security and the pros and cons and all, they can at least hold some free seminars in their schools for the students of class 9 and above, up to class 12, and give them some inputs about what it goes on in the enterprise security. You may find that some of the children there may pick up the field in right earnest, and they may go on and become experts in IT security, because you don't get Ankit Fadias and such people who are self-motivated, so many. But in case they are given inputs and they are told what it entails to get into this area in the schools, many more Ankit Fadias may be generated. Another thing is that which we as an organization can do, and we do also, we can participate in events focused towards IT and IT security. IT के तो बहुत सेमिनार होते हैं, but IT security is mostly done by the private agencies who are involved in that selling of IT solutions, IT security solutions. But if we can hold more of events like Ground Zero and all, where events and competitions are held and prizes are given out to innovative hackers and students and all, then these things can go a bit far in generating capacity. Then last but not the least in the capacity building is jobs. We have to ensure that our advertisement for or vacancies for jobs should have some requirement of IT security built into them, that people should be aware of these things and all, so that the students who are now in the engineering colleges will take some interest and try to get educated themselves into this area. The third part was the forensics. I think the first two things, if we do well, that is the capacity building in IT security and implementing the security part good in our preventive security systems, the requirement of forensics is very less and very rare. So that can always be provided by the specialized agencies, and also I need not dwell upon that aspect much. Thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Vijay, for briefing about the use of security and scope of IT in railways. Now, I would request Mr. Alok Tripathi, Joint Director, NILIT, to present his innovative projects on this aspect.
Good evening, distinguished guests sitting on the desk, and ladies and gentlemen present. Now, in the previous session, we have a very good speech from Dr. Gulshan Rai, and he is one of the most important stakeholders from an important organization who is dealing with the information security aspects of this country. He said that people are very important in information security. Unless we have people, we could not have process, and we could not implement the right technology for the information security. So, if we are going for other IT field, this training of people is not very difficult. We should have systems, we should have technology, we should have tools, and we can train the system. We can train the people. But if you are going for the information security, there is various challenges. The first challenge is that in an information security attack occurs, and you are going to teach a person how to countermeasure or how to thwart that attack. So when the attack occurs, everything goes down. So when you are teaching on a physical system or on a conventional system where the PCs are there, everything will go down, the server will go down, and how will the participant will learn when the system is not there. So in that aspect, there is a challenge. So when you have to train a person in information security, you have to create a non-destructive type of environment. It's an environment which can be recovered within a minute or two after the attack occurs, and so that the countermeasures could be designed. The next challenge is that we have technology, we have systems, but how that technology and system could be replicated? It is true that we are building a very good IT security lab at ISC or IIT, but that could be replicated. But if it is not replicated, then it is of no use. People from north and corner of the country are needing IT security. Governments in Bihar, UP, where there are various less resources, are implementing IT security, and people from all part of the country needs IT security. So concentrating resources at one place, at a particular place, will not meet our objective. So we should have lab that could be accessed very easily from anywhere. So for that, virtualization is the solution. And the next
important challenge that comes to the IT security is because the attacks are dynamic in nature. Means when in a real scenario, when the attack occurs, it is dynamic in nature, it is in real time, and we have to design countermeasures in real time. So we should have a real time type of environment. When we go to the training, most of the advanced certification training program are teaching static type of training. Means they have an attack, a static type of attack occurs, the attacker destroys the system, and after that people teach that now you implement this countermeasure, and when the attack occurs, that attack is not happening, or it is not destroying the things, or it is not penetrating your security. So we must have a scenario, we must have a training environment where this real type of scenario is there, so that the real-time attack occurs and at the same time countermeasures are designed. And the next important thing is when you have an organizational network or you have a big network, a single person or an individual cannot handle all type of security. So there must be a teaming. Means a team should work to counter the attack, and there must be a coordination among the team. So until and unless this teaming, this coordination, how to coordinate when an attack occurs is part of the training program, nobody can thwart attack in a real-time scenario. So for this, we have the NILIT has done an innovation and has developed an advanced virtual environment-based training environment with the support of e-security division of DADI. This project was sanctioned with a total outlay of 2.04 crores. And we have tried to build I am not going into detail, I am going to the core part of it because the time is very limited. We have built 7 exercises. And the first 1 to 6 exercises caters to the different network environment which generally occurs in an organization. The first is a secure organizational network, which is generally occurs in a corporate network, and there are 2 parts in exercises. The first is the network building stage, where there is a team of people who build the network stage according to their security configuration or whatever they have learned from the security. And in the second part, the instructor launches the attack. And then they have to detect that attack in real time and design countermeasures in real time. So this is the first exercise, that is a corporate network or an organizational network. So in this stage 1, the team will configure firewall, router, central log server, IDS-based domain controller and DNS, mail exchange server, DMZ web server, DMZ split DNS and reverse proxy, patching server, user IDs and LAN IDs. And in stage 2, when the instructor launches the attack, these type of attacks are launched. The first is internet access policy violation, raw user ARP spoof, DNS spoof, denial of service, internet relay chat, IRC chat, public port scan, SSH brute force and DOS. These attacks are launched one by one, and one has to detect the attack first and then design the countermeasure in a coordinated way. There will be a team, because you see there are firewall router. An individual cannot handle all the devices there. So there is a team, they have to learn the coordination, how to counter attack when the real attack has occurred in this environment. Now the second is we have taken a training environment. There is a training center, and how the training center builds the network, and and what type of attack could occur in a training center environment. So we have this secure network setup in this stage 1, where the team will learn to configure firewall, router, web server hardening, mail server configuration, DNS configuration, and implementing RDL. And these are the attacks which can occur: Skype attack, ICMP attack, ARP flooding, denial of service, DOS, and internet relay chat. Now, we will like to tell this Skype attack. Generally, people do not have countermeasures for this, but we have a countermeasure how to stop the Skype attack. Now, this is a third exercise, that is a secure network built for a web hosting company, and in this, the attacks which are the stage 1, the configuration which are done: firewall, mail log server configuration, configuring web server, configuring DNS, hosting setup admin, and hosting setup user. And the attacks which are launched and which are detected, and the countermeasure for which the team learns, that is denial of service, distributed denial of service, exploiting an IPv6 phishing mail attack, exploiting IPv6 and phishing mail attack. Now in exercise 4, this is a typical university environment, and here the network setup is firewall. That generally occurs. Firewall universities have firewall, proxy servers, and domain controllers. And here attacks and anomalies are policy violation for Skype, and policy violation for bandwidth control. These are the general type of attack which occurs in a university environment, because students generally try to download many things. They generally want to chat, they generally want to talk to Skype. So these are the general type of attack, and these attacks are taken in this exercise. Now we are shifting from IPv4 to IPv6. So unless and until we take IPv6, until and unless we teach people how to implement IPv6 on a network, we will not be doing justice to the people. So this exercise 5A is catering with this IPv6 implementation on a network. Here we are not teaching attack, and in this we are going with exercise 5B, because for many times for many years this IPv4 and IPv6 will coexist together. So in this we are teaching the two technologies which are essential while implementing IPv6 and IPv4 both in a network. So that is a dual stack and tunneling implementation. We are teaching here how to implement this dual stack and tunneling implementation through this virtual environment. Now next, we have a IPv6 network, and we are, whatever the attacks possible, whatever the research we have done, whatever the attacks that could be occurred on an IPv6 environment, we have built into this exercise. And in this, we are configuring firewall, router, domain controller, DNS, web server, DNS, reverse proxy, all this using a core IPv6, full IPv6 implementation, and attacks whatever from our research we have searched out these types of attacks possible on IPv6 network: DOS attack, DAT attack, and neighbor solicitation, flooding attack. This we have searched, and we have incorporated in that, and whatever the countermeasures available, whatever the countermeasures we were able to research, and whatever the countermeasures we were able to search, we have one has to implement in a real-time environment. So in this countermeasures stage, we do not give the solution. We give in a specific period. They have to detect the attack and they have to design the countermeasures. And if they are able, they send us the solution. Otherwise, we give the solution at the end. Now, these 6 exercises are learning phases where through various scenarios one can learn how to design the network, how to design countermeasures against attack. Now this exercise 7, we are leaving it free. We are providing it as an infrastructure as a service, where we are providing the devices, we are providing the tools. One has to design a secure architecture by himself. We are giving him various types of attacks, and then he has to launch attacks on that, and he has to test whether the security architecture which he has designed is able to prevent whatever the attacks he is launching on it. So this is the phase where after learning from 6 exercises, one can learn to design the secure architecture. He can build a secure architecture, and he can test the security of that architecture by launching attack on that. And in our second PRSD, there was a suggestion that since secure coding is also an important part of this security capacity building now, security training now. So we are building exercise 8 on secure coding practices, although that is not included in the presentation. We are concentrating on ASP top 10 vulnerabilities, and that exercise is already built and that is in the testing stage, so I have not included there. And this environment is ready for beta testing within one month, and then it will be launched for public for training. So thank you. This is the innovation.
Thank you, Mr. Alok Tripathi, for a very, very wonderful presentation. Now the session is open for discussion. If you have any questions, let us pick up few questions very quickly because we are already a little bit late. Just please.
I was able to attend only the last 1.5 hours because since morning I was busy with CII conference. And I have one suggestion also, that pornography is a thing which is causing many problems. Even for that 16 December incident, it is mentioned that lot of pornography activities are happening. So that needs to be filtered out. And how about having a identification for email account? If that is done, then lot of activities, lot of illegal activities and things like that would stop. Thank you.
But can you reply on this?
No, actually I have shown various types of attack. So, for example, download attack. So, generally, what happens in a college environment or in a corporate environment when people go up, they first download the movies. So, we have those type of attack where such anonymous downloads can be prevented, where it can be detected from which system how much download is going, and if there is an access download somewhere, we can prevent that.
You say for opening a bank account, everything is required, all the identification is required. For opening an email account, nothing is required. I can have 50 accounts in my name, and with different name, different identity, different age, and then I can do any kind of illegal activity with that. How about having some proof of identification so that genuine email account is there?
Actually, as we are going for implementing security, people are building security, and there are suggestions that when we are going for digital signatures, whenever these accounts are open, that is a situation when we are thinking that everybody should have digital signature. So that can be a solution, that people can put digital signature when opening an account.
Another issue which, hope I am audible. Another issue here is, sir, that we have to balance between the privacy concerns and the security concerns. There is a very thin line between these two. The controls over which you put over, say, bank account opening and all that, you have already put a lot of controls, like you need to have Aadhaar and all that, but people want more loosening of controls so that more and more people can get included in this. Similarly, in case of email or your identity to be proven on the net, it comes with the fear always, which is also proven in this NSA spoof, is that you can also be monitored. Whatever you do on the net can also be monitored. Yes, pornography and all those things are an issue, but they are a social issue. You cannot control pornography or any other illegitimate content on the net or in any digital media just by putting some controls over the media itself. The pornography can also be distributed in digital cards these days. The phones, these things are coming via all the other ways. And day by day, your younger generation is becoming more and more digital savvy. So putting controls over them through technical means is nearly impossible. So you will have to find the means of social systems where you can educate them in the schools and all that, like you want to give other health education and all those things. So you have to give this digital education as well, that they have to be careful.
Any other questions?
Yeah. Myself Akhilesh Mittal, Director IT from Rajasthan Public Service Ajmer. My question to Alok Tripathi ji. Is there any departmental training program for this innovation made by NELEC?
No, we have a workshop. We conduct workshop. We have a schedule for that. And we have published it on website. I am having that schedule. I will give that. We conduct weekly workshops on that. So there is a schedule for that. And since this is built as part of IT project, so when this
setup will be full ready. TRITI will use it for government officers training all over. There is an ICA project for phase 2 coming, and where this security environment will be recommended for government officers.
It is also floating some short-term courses, 1 week, 2 week courses, and sometimes there is workshops organized by United, so those can be seen by the audience. Any other question, please?
This is actually a question. I am Mitra. Mr. Tripathi, in your presentation you said that Skype, what exactly means it? The hacking of Skype or the blocking of?
No, blocking of Skype, because people do not have solution for blocking Skype. But we have done research and we are blocking Skype.
And hacking of Skype is also one of the...
No, the main problem is that people, when somebody talks with Skype, it is undetectable because it creates peer-to-peer network and it is very difficult to detect. But we have a solution and we are blocking that Skype also, and we have shown it to our this project review committee and they have appreciated that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for questions. Also thanks my all speakers for wonderful presentation. Thank you very much.
I thank the session chair and all the speakers. Now I request Dr. Ravi Gupta to present mementos to our session chair and speakers, to Dr. Samsher, Director NILET, to Shri Golok Kumar Samili, Principal Consultant and Head Technology, Ministry of External Affairs of India, Shri Vijay Devnath, from GRIS, and Mr. Alok Tripathi. I request Ravi Gupta to present the mentorship. Thank you to session chair and all the speakers. I request for a group photo.